I want to wish you a welcome back to Torah is for Everyone after the holiday of Pesach. I hope you had a good holiday. We had a wonderful Seder, and I had my favorite meal. One of my favorite meals is matzah brai that I wait only once a year to have because I don't want to spoil the joy of eating matzah brai. Oh, you got balloons. That's very cute.
It's not surprise.
You didn't do that yourself?
No.
Isn't that
That's funny.
interesting? I've seen that sometimes that things come up. Maybe certain things, certain words spark that, but I like balloons. All right, so we're going to begin. We're going to go back to the regular Torah readings, and let me share the screen. I'm not going to read all. It goes from Leviticus, from Vayikra 17 to 16 to the end of 18. So I'm not going to read all of them. The first chapter 16 basically is just are going over the regulations for the Kohanim for their own to be able to present themselves. But here I want to read in chapter 17. I want to start here. And what I'd like you to do is, as we're reading it, don't be afraid to interrupt. Because the Torah is for us for today. These are stories that give us principles. They are not meant to all be taken literally. We no longer have a temple. We no longer have the priesthood. But there are principles that we can draw from these stories for us on how to live and how to behave, what God wants from us today. So if you see something that sparks a little light in your head, let me know, okay? So Yud He Vav He, the Lord, spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons and to all the Israelite people and say to them, this is what Yud He Vav He, the Creator, has commanded. If any one of the house of Israel slaughters an ox, sheep, or goat in the camp, or does so outside the camp, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to bring it as an offering to the Lord before the Lord's tabernacle, blood guilt shall be imputed to that party. Having shed blood, that person shall be cut off from among his people." So you see here, we're not to slaughter these animals outside the camp just for any reason. The pagans did that. The Egyptians did that. Slowly, God was taking us away from paganism and bringing order into our lives. And we would be guilty. And the person who did that would be cut off from Israel.
Sorry, what does it mean? Like, why it is outside the camp or inside the camp? Or what is that? What's the difference?
Because inside was a tent of meeting. And when these things were, if they were presenting offerings anywhere they wanted, they could not do that.
Oh, I see that. I understand.
Yeah. See,
Okay.
it's to bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting, to present it as an offering to God before God's tabernacle. If we did it, because the pagans would have altars anywhere. God was stopping us from that. Because we were no longer to be pagans, we were to follow what God wanted us to do. This is in order that the Israelites may bring the offerings, which they have been making in the open, before they did it all in the open, that they may bring them before the Lord to the Kohen, to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and offer them as sacrifices of well-being. These were shalamim. Those were the offerings of well-being. We're thanking God because we are doing well. So that the Kohen may smear the blood against the altar or sprinkle it at the tent of meeting and turn the fat into smoke as a nechoyah, reach nechoyah, as a pleasing scent to God, that they may offer their offerings no more to the goat demons after whom they stray. You'll even see today in witchcraft and in paganism, the figure of a goat head. Those were goat demons that were worshipped in Egypt, and God was showing us, do not have other gods of any kind.
It's
This shall,
interesting that
yeah,
this hasn't stopped, because it's true. The goat is a big witchcraft animal, the poor
exactly.
goat. But it's amazing the continuity in a bad sense. It's still that way today.
Exactly. This is 4,000 years later.
Yeah.
And this shall be a hukat. Now, we don't know why. Hukat means that God is saying, this is something that you need to do. I'm not always going to give you the reason. Later on, maybe you'll understand. But for now, the beginning of the creation, the formation of Israel, you just have to obey. But this would be a law for us for all time, throughout all the ages. We were not to sit in front of any goat demons. In other words, don't do anything that is pagan. And the only way we can learn what is pagan and what is not is by reading the Torah. The Torah gives us the principles, and a lot of these are in this book, Vayikra. Say to them further, if anyone from the house of Israel or the strangers who reside among us. That is really, really, really important. We have to understand that God set apart a people, yes, Israel, but we always had those among us who were not born from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are called the Ger, those who joined along with us, like Ruth, who reside among us. And they can also offer a burnt offering, an olah, or a sacrifice. And even they who do not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to offer it to the Lord, that person shall be cut off from his people. So they are included with us. We can no longer say, because the Torah makes it clear, that the gods of the Gentiles is different than the God of the Hebrews. We have only one God for all nations. That's why we're in such a big mess today, because this God is fighting that God. All the religions have their own gods, and nobody knows what's right and what's wrong anymore. If any of the house of Israel or of the strangers who reside among them partakes of any blood, I will set my face against the person who partakes of the blood. I will cut off that person from among kin, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. And I have assigned it to you to make a covering, to make an atonement, an expiation for your lives upon the altar. It is the blood as life that effects expiation. So when you hear people eating blood pudding, or they don't eat, or they keep their meat bloody, we don't necessarily have to buy meat that's koshered. What we need to do is take the meat or any animals that we take that we can eat and cover it with salt, let it soak. You can put it through vinegar and let all the blood soak out. Then we can eat it, but it represents the life force within us is blood. And God does not want us to do a lot of these blood sacrifices. If you see some of the pagan rituals that they would do with blood, it's absolutely gruesome. And all you have to do is do a little research on Google, and you'll find them. God didn't want that for his people. Therefore, I say to the Israelite people, no person among you shall partake of blood, nor shall the stranger, the ger who resides among you, shall partake of blood. I know that there's a special dish among the, I think it's the Scottish, is it, Miriam? What is it, blood pudding? There's a
Yeah,
name for it.
haggis.
Haggis, exactly. Nicht for mir.
Nicht for me also.
Not for us. We're not to partake of it. And even if they call themselves Christians, God said, no, the stranger among us needs to say no to eating blood or drinking blood. And if any Israelite or any stranger. Again, notice how often it's both of us together. We left Israel, we left Egypt together. Any stranger who resides among them hunts down an animal or a bird that may be eaten, that person shall pour out its blood and cover it with earth. So in other words, they need to kill the animal, turn it over, let the blood flow out. It's a bird, they take off the head and let the blood flow out and then cover it with earth. For the life of all flesh, its blood is its life. God is constantly trying to tell us that he is a God of life. And those who do not follow him, follow the ways of the pagans, are following a path of death. Therefore I say to the Israelite people, you shall not partake of the blood of any flesh, for the life of all flesh is its blood, and anyone who partakes of it shall be cut off. Anyone, any person, whether citizen, the one who is born of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or stranger, the ger who joins us. Anyone who eats what has died or has been torn by beasts shall wash those clothes, bathe in water, remain impure until evening, and then they shall be pure. So God is setting us apart through these customs. They don't need to be done today. It's not the same thing, but it was for that period of time. But if the clothes are not washed and the body is not bathed, that person shall bear the guilt. God was setting down a series of regulations, of hukim, for us to do, to set Israel apart from the rest of the world for a purpose. Verse 8, chapter 18 is really important. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, I, Yud-He-Vav-He, I, the Creator, am your God. You shall not copy the practices of the land of Egypt where you dwelt, or of the land of Canaan to which I am taking you, nor shall you follow their laws. You see, they had their own, here the word is v'chukotechem. They had their own chukim, their own rituals, their own regulations. We were not to follow neither from the land we were leaving, nor to the land that we were going. And that's the same for us today. The land in which we live has its own rules and regulations. But for us, for Israel, those who follow God, he gives us the laws, the rules, the regulations, and they follow us wherever we go. My rules alone shall you observe. And here it's mishpatai, my rules, my judgments, not only the chukim here, and faithfully follow my hukotai, my chukim, for I am the Lord your God. He's speaking here specifically as we spoke about before when we go to the 10 Commandments. The two middle ones, the Shabbat and honoring our parents, are the chukim, and the mishpatai are the last, mishpatim are the last 5. How to treat our neighbor, how to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. This is what it's saying here. You shall keep my, here, chukim, hukutai, and my rules, mishpotai, again, by the pursuit of which human beings shall live. In other words, if we follow them, if we follow these laws and these rules, we shall live. It means we're choosing life. God is giving us the rules for humanity to live together in peace. When we don't do them, what we're doing is we're choosing the death of humanity, the destruction of humanity. And what we are witnessing in the world today is the destruction of humanity, because you won't find these mishpotai, these chukim, in the rules of these so-called other gods who are ruling this planet today. None of you men shall come near anyone of his own flesh to uncover nakedness. In other words, there's no such thing, according to God, as it being okay for a man to sleep with another man, called homosexuality. This goes completely against the Torah. And I have heard so many people say to me, well, they're born that way. But basically, by saying that, they're calling the Creator a liar. They're saying that the Creator, by saying this, is an unjust and unmerciful God, and we know He's the opposite. Your father's nakedness, that is the nakedness of your mother, you shall not uncover. So in other words, you can't sleep with your parents. She's your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Do not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. It is the nakedness of your father. In other words, the father covers, is the protector of the home and of his wife. The nakedness of your sister, your father's daughter. How many times have we heard of people who have slept with their brother or sister? Goes against Torah. Nakedness of your son's daughter, all these people in the family, we do not cover their nakedness. That's what they were talking about when they spoke about Noah's son Ham. And he uncovered his father's nakedness, and his son Canaan was cursed. That was passed down through Canaan right up till today. Do not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, your aunt. She is your mother's flesh. And then we continue down, do not uncover the nakedness of the women. And here's one, do not come near a woman during her menstrual period of impurity to uncover her nakedness. There are many societies where they think that's absolutely perfectly fine for a man to sleep with a woman during her menstruation, because they think that it's more pleasurable, or again, the idea of the blood. But God is saying, do not do it. He's allowing the woman to have a time when her hormones are raging, to have a time of rest. Do not have carnal relations with your neighbor's wife and defile her. Do not allow any of your offspring to be offered up to Molech. Do not allow any of our children to be offered up to Molech. What do you think that means?
Human sacrifice.
Baruch, are you saying something?
The picture's not centered.
The
The
picture.
writing is not centered. I can't see after name and B after that. I can't see what's written there.
Is this better?
Still no good. You gotta move the do over to the.
Can you open your own computer and look up Leviticus 18? Okay, instead of Miriam, can you see it all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
18.
18, this is 21 now. Leviticus 18, verse 21. Do not allow any of your offspring to be offered up to Molech. Do not profane the name of your God.
But this
So-
is so important
Yeah.
because from what I understand, one of the main reasons, things I wrestled with, like the idea that, when you go into the land, kill everybody. When you go into the land you're about to occupy. And I said, what does that mean? And when you understand that people would take their own children and they're offer them up, basically kill them, sacrifice them to a god or a Moloch or whoever, it's so horrifying that's got to be, uprooted. You can't. It's just such a horror.
But how do we relate it to today? Because you're not going to
Oh,
see.
you're talking about abortion.
That's one aspect of Molech. Yes. But Molech represents a false god. A false god represents false ideologies, leading people in the wrong direction. I look at how many of us as parents today have not taught our children well enough. We have not brought them the teaching of the Torah. Right now, we're offering up our children, even when we send them to university, with all the leftist ideologies that are going on in schools today. What our kids are learning is like offering up our children to Molech. We are not teaching them what God wants from them. We're not ourselves living what God wants from us. But when we allow our offspring to be offered up, how many are sold into slavery? How many children in various religions have been sold to men who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s? You'll see this in Islam. 8-year-old girls, 9-year-old girls, because Muhammad did that. This is offering them up to Molech. And this is happening all over the world as we speak. We are profaning the name of our God. This is leading us to death. Here again, do not lie with a male as one lies with a woman. It is an abhorrence, an abomination. Do not have carnal relations with any beast or defile yourself thereby. Likewise for a woman, she shall not lend herself to a beast to mate with it. It is perversion. Do not defile yourself in any of those ways, for it is by such, listen to this, it is by these, all those that we read, that the nations that I am casting out before you defiled themselves. These are what the nations who lived in the land of Israel, God chose that land. It belongs to him. And those living in that land, if they have defiled themselves in any of those ways, he's casting them out because the land became defiled. And I called it to account for its iniquity, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. God is doing that. God did that. The people who lived in the land at that time were so evil. They had reached their point, the saturation point of evil, and God was bringing us to that land. And he says, don't do what we did back in Egypt, and don't do what the Canaanites did, or he will do the same thing to us, because the land is sacred. I don't know if you remember the first expulsion from the land into Babylon was done because we were in Babylon for 70 years. Every 7 years, we needed to leave the land lie fallow. Shemitah of the land. We didn't do it for 490 years. You divide 7 into 490 and you get 70. We were in Babylon from 70 years. And then we were given the right. The Babylonians were defeated by the Persians. And then we have the king of Persia, Darius or Cyrus, who told Nehemiah and provided everything that he needed to come back and rebuild the wall around Jerusalem so that we could come home. That we get kicked out of the land when we do what the pagans do. Those who were kicked out, if we follow their ways, and let me tell you, we are following their ways as a people. I don't care what anybody, tries to defend us as a holy people. We are not a holy people. We have sinned, and we have to make it right before our God, and then no one can touch us. No one can keep us out of our land. But you must keep my chukim and my mishpatim, and you must not do any of these abhorrent things, neither the citizen nor the stranger who resides among you. For all those abominable things, those abhorrent, those things that God hates, were done by the people who were in the land before you. and the land became defiled. That's why God kicked them out. So let not the land spew you out for defiling it. He's speaking to us as it spewed out the nation that came before you. All who do any of those abhorrent things, such persons shall be cut off from their people. You shall keep charge not to engage in any of the abhorrent practices that were carried on before you, and you shall not defile yourself through them. I, Yud He Vav He, am your God. We are to have no other gods. Now, just quickly, I want to look at something here. This coming Shabbat, we have the Haftorah reading. Just open it up. And I want to share the screen. This is the Haftorah reading. Okay, Brian, can you see this online? If you want to turn to it, you turn to Ezekiel 22, 1 to 19. If we want to know what's going on in the world today, we just need to turn to our prophet Ezekiel. Here it says, the word of God came to me saying, now you, son of man, some versions say, oh mortal, will you judge? Will you judge the city of bloodshed? Declare to all her abominable deeds. He's talking to us. You shall say, this is what the Lord God says. O city in whose midst blood is shed, so that your time may come when you make idols that defile you, you stand guilty of the blood that you have shed, defiled by your idols that you have made. And you have caused your days to draw near, and have reached your years. Therefore I have made you a reproach to the nations, and a scorn to all countries. If we look around now, look how many enemies Israel has now. We are becoming a reproach to the nations. Those who are near and those who are far from you shall mock you. O you defiled of name and full of tumult. Every one of the princes of Israel in your midst used his strength to shed blood. Fathers and mothers in the midst of you have been humiliated. The stranger has been cheated in your midst. Orphans and widows have been wronged within you. You have despised my holy things and have profaned my Sabbaths. Talebearers, those who have evil tongues in your midst, have been intent on shedding blood. And in you they have eaten on the mountains, and in the midst of you they have committed depravity. In you they have uncovered their father's nakedness. In you they have violated women during their menstrual impurity. They have committed abhorrent acts with their neighbors' wives, and each have lewdly defiled their own daughters-in-law. And in you have defiled their own sisters and their father's daughters. They have taken bribes within you to shed blood. You have taken interest and profit, and you have greedily gained from your neighbors by oppression. You have forgotten me, says the sovereign God. Behold, therefore, I will strike my hands over your dishonest gain that you have amassed, and over the bloodshed that has been committed in your midst. Will your courage endure, or your hands remain strong in the day when I shall deal with you? I, the Lord, have spoken it, and I will do it. I will scatter you among the nations and disperse you throughout the countries, and I will consume the filthiness out of you. You shall be dishonored in the sight of the nations, and you shall know that I am God. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, the house of Israel has become dross to me. They are all brass, tin, iron, and lead. But in the furnace, the dross becomes silver. Thus says the Lord God, because you have all become dross, I will gather you into Jerusalem. So we can see these are not my words. I'm not saying it. My rabbi isn't saying it. Our prophet Ezekiel is saying it. And we're busy marching and we're telling the world, do not be anti-Semitic. But our God is telling us very clearly, and it is not a popular message. It's not easy to say to people. It's because of our behavior that our enemies are coming against us.
I
It's
don't
because,
remember seeing it as clearly as this.
yeah,
It's almost shocking.
yeah. And I'm not saying that we're doing it on purpose. Some are. But our people, the Torah says that our people perish for lack of knowledge. For those of us who know, we need to let others know. That's why we do this. But we're small. How many of us really have the courage to go and tell this to other people? When we say it, when we say that we want to follow the Torah, you're brainwashed. Oh, you're mentally ill if you think that the scriptures are real. Rather, we would prefer to hear that all these things that the Torah says are wrong are okay to do. But it's not okay. And when people suffer, there's usually a reason for it. We may not be suffering for something we do, but we may be suffering for the things that our parents or our grandparents, 3 or 4 generations. But when we know better, we have to do better. And we have a book that gives us the means of doing it. Our God is a merciful God. He is long-suffering. I'm telling you, I am so amazed that my life, that I'm not dead today because of the things that I did during my lifetime, breaking every one of the 10 commandments. Maybe I didn't know, but I know better now. And that's why I feel so humbled that he looked down on me and said, you know what? Just turn to me and I will forgive you.
But
Follow my
that's the
ways.
key.
That's the
It's,
key.
it's not about, these are all, doesn't excuse those things, but unless you allow yourself to be touched by something bigger than you, there's a difference between being open to the idea that there is something bigger than us, God, a creator, than those. I remember this man I really liked, and it would sort of send shivers down me. At one point, he was flushing red with such pride. He says, I do what I want my way. In other words, nothing is going to, and it was kind of scary because it was such arrogance. And it's not the same as if you talk to somebody who doesn't know these things. It doesn't click unless you're open. True humility is not even always a conscious what we think of, oh, this person is always so kind and nice. It's bigger than that. It's a willingness to hear about something bigger than yourself. Like the idea that I am number one, and the prevailing philosophy is that I'm number one and I
Well,
do it
that's
my way.
Pharaoh. That's Pharaoh.
But
I
you see
am
it even
God.
commercials. The
Yeah.
Peloton commercial. What is that commercial where she's going? I'm fascinated by it. It's on so often. She goes something like, "Shout it." Um, I forget. Say it loud. And then she says, "Say it more." And then she goes, "Watch me." It's like I
There's
am the one.
huge
It's so
ego.
prevalent. It's such ego, and we all have it. We all want to be this and that, but it's so strong. The idea of the ego, really.
But it's not only the idea of an ego, which is, yes, that's number one. But the fact that I remember my daughter went to school with this boy, and over the years I became friends with his mother. And when I came to God and I started reading the Bible and I would talk to her about it, she would say, I don't want to know because then I'll be responsible. it's like we don't want to take responsibility for our behavior.
But
Let
isn't
others.
that partly, I can't get, I don't know this person, but when she says that, yeah, that's pretty amazing. But isn't that partly, even in a crazy way, more open than other people? Like she's saying, maybe there is somebody, like she's even more open, and who knows, maybe now, because it's not, God doesn't ask us, when you think of it, if I didn't have God in my life, I think I would, who knows where I'd be now. It's not hard in the way, it's not really hard. It's hard in some more, to stand and be different from others. But in other ways, the only true joy and meaning in life is from God. How could anyone turn somebody offering you water in the desert away? So when that woman said that, partly it's like saying, I think there might be something, but I don't know. But there are other people I find even more arrogant who says, there's nothing but we're the the rulers of and makers of our own destiny, without even a doubt that like there's a scientist, Richard Dawkins, he's a very famous scientist, and he's so arrogant, to me anyway, that strikes me as the highest arrogance.
Yeah.
It's not even a willingness to say, well, even to say, I don't know
Yeah.
what it's all about.
Yeah.
But
I used to, in my early days of coming to the Bible, because I went with Christianity at that time, and I would go to churches, and there were pastors who would, say, well, I know everything there is to know about the Bible. And yet I could never understand that, because just knowing is not enough.
well,
I
they
mean,
would lose their followers if they accepted the Torah as equal to the New
exactly.
Testament.
Well, the only way that you can promote another religion is by getting rid of the Torah, because the Torah, which is the foundation of all truth, is just proves that these other religions are just false. And I've been through a lot of these other religions, so I know all these ideologies, and I went so deeply until I couldn't go any further. There was like these walls blocking me, and the more I dug into them, the more my life went cuckoo. It went really astray. And but now it's like this truth just resonates within my being. And it doesn't mean I don't struggle, because to tell you the truth, when you follow the Torah, you struggle more. It's like every day we have to make these choices that sometimes are so difficult. You're on mute, Miriam.
Anyway, my experience, I know what you're saying, but maybe it's important to qualify. It's not the same kind of struggle as despair. Like I was in despair.
No, I'm not talking about despair.
No, but that's what it could sound like. I was in despair, and emptiness, and there's nothing that compares to that horror. The hardness is leading a moral life when people, your own family could put you down, whatever. Yes, that's hard, but ultimately, it's the only thing that really gives life meaning.
Right.
So in that sense, it's not hard, but because that's what, to me, it sounds like. I know you're not saying that, but
No, what I'm saying is like the decisions that we need to make on a daily basis. Like,
yeah,
a few people have said to me, oh, I broke, like even you said you were so worried because you thought you were, by eating nutritional yeast, you were breaking the Pesach. And then you
Yeah.
found out that nutritional yeast is not like other yeast.
It's not leaven.
Exactly. We question the things that we do because we have the basis in the Torah. We know that it says, do not work or have anybody else work in your circle, in either your servants or whoever, on Shabbat. The Sabbath is the day that God gave us as a day that shows us that he exists and that he has given us this one day to show us that we are no longer slaves. And he says, just take this one day. And it's very hard for us, to do that sometimes. we get caught. We'll go out, we'll take a walk, and then we forget it's not sunset yet, and we want to go, have a bite to eat. These
Yeah.
little type of things.
Yeah.
And then we have to also be careful not to get caught up in all the extra rules and regulations. There are so many rules and regulations around Pesach, it could make you crazy, to the point that some people, I've just heard that some wealthy Jews buy a separate house just to use on Pesach. I mean, how mashig is that? People use 2 sets of dishes, and they clean their house from top to bottom, when the only thing the Torah says is don't eat yeast, because it represents pride. And God doesn't want us to be so proud that we think we're gods and we forget who he is. I mean, it's not a complex issue. He makes it so clear for us and easy for us to do, but it's not easy to do. It's hard, especially when it comes to Lashon Hara, the evil
Yeah,
tongue.
that's the hardest.
Or being jealous of somebody else. So easy to covet. Oh, I'll do anything to have what they have. It's not what we should need to be happy for others. Don't commit adultery. Not steal from them. Don't charge interest. That's why we have this. That's why it's so important to read the Torah for what it says. And that the fact that the land, to me, was, when I read that, I went, wow, this land belongs to God. And if we do the things that he tells us not to do, we are defiling his land. And he will not protect us against our enemy. So we as a people have to ask ourselves, as a nation, not only living in the land, but around the world, what are we doing in our own lives to create this upsurge again in anti-Semitism? We need to be responsible for that. We need to be accountable to God for that. We need to go to him and say, please, God, help me live life so I can bring light into this world, so that maybe our enemies will be stayed for a while. We'll turn around for a while, because the horror of what they did to us on October the 7th, the sheer horror of it, how did we cause such a rage in our Creator that he took his hand away, his protective hand away, to allow that to happen to us? Unless we face it, nothing can change. All the marches with the flags, all the emails and the things that we send out, the petitions that we sign, we can't change the heart of man. We have to ask ourselves these questions. When I get sick, the first question I ask, what is going on in my life? Did I do something physical? Did I do something spiritual? Is it emotional? Those are the areas that we have to deal with in our life. And all 3 are involved. And not only as a people, a singular person, but as a nation. We need to ask ourselves those questions. And people don't want to do that. We'd rather, oh, this is what the Rabbi say. I don't want to question. Well, who am I to tell all these thousands of years of sages? Who am I to say you're wrong? And the Torah, the written Torah, is right. So it's really hard. It's hard to walk with God, but we don't have a choice. If we want to see change, we have to walk with God. The rest is death. So, is there anything else that you want to say about this portion? Jerry, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, we should think about ourselves, but are the other people that much better that we would suffer more?
I don't understand.
Well, are the other people, our enemies, better than that. So we suffer. We suffer if we don't follow. Are they following good? Are they good at?
No, they're suffering as well. But we were just picture it this way. We were a nation taken out of the Gentiles to be the messenger for the Creator. Our role is huge. To those who have been given more, those more is required of us. When people at the bottom, let's say you work in an organization and you have the chief financial officer, you have the chief executive officer, and you have the regular people who are working there. When there is a crime at the bottom of the scale, you know, in the chief executive officer is the one who's held accountable. We are the chief executive officers who represent the God of the universe on this planet. And when we are not a witness, a testimony, we are given light to bring to the rest of the world. When we bring darkness to the rest of the world, everyone suffers. They do, and we do. As a matter of fact, it says in the book of Zechariah, in the last days, when the time comes, when God is going to say, okay, there's enough suffering on this planet, I'm going to restore it, bring in tikkun olam. Those last days, it says, 10 Gentiles will run to a Jew and say, clinging to his cloak, his tzitzit, saying, show me your God. There is only one God. He's ours, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If we don't follow him and be a light to the nations because we are accountable to him, we will suffer more. But the whole world suffers. You don't think right now with what's going on with Hamas, the people in those territories are suffering? It's horrendous what they're going through. Horrendous.
They're killing Palestinians.
They're killing their own people. They don't care about life. They only care about death. Our God is a God of life. And by us, the only way that we are going to stop that, and God will go to war for us, like he did with Egypt. Back in Egypt, that's the prototype. He went to war for us. He brought 10 plagues against the pagans, the Egyptian nation, till he set us free. And the plagues of the world are hitting. This was just one incident that happened on October 7th. Look what happened just before. Even the last time when Iran attacked us. Again, the tumult, just like it said in Ezekiel, the tumult going on in Israel, the infighting, it was horrible. We all know, even the rabbis will say, but at the time of the Romans, the Romans came in and tore down destroyed our temple because of sinat chinam, hatred amongst ourselves. If we are obedient to the Torah and we are united under one God, nobody can touch us. No enemy could touch us. And then people would start to see, these are the stories of the scriptures. Look at that. You know, we talked about a few weeks ago when we did about leprosy, this Tza'arat, this Syrian officer named Naaman. Here was this man living in Syria, very powerful general, and he came down with Tza'arat. And the servant, who was an Israeli, she was a captive. We've been captives in the diaspora for thousands of years. Right now, we're captives in Canada, believe it or not. But this captive young girl said to his wife, if my Lord would only go to the prophet living in Israel, he would heal my Lord, my master. So she went to him and says, just go to Israel. So he went to the king, and the king sent a letter, or he sent a letter to the king of Israel, who got scared to death because he said, how am I going to heal this man? I don't know how to be a healer. But Elijah heard about it and said, or Elisha, and said, I don't remember, is Elisha or Elijah? Elisha said, just tell him to come. So he went to Israel. And they said to him, just dip 7 times. He expected a whole big show. Oh, Naaman is here. All I have to do is touch him and do my magic and he'll be healed. Elisha didn't even come out of his house. He said to him, go and dip in the Jordan 7 times. It's a little bit like we read in Leviticus a couple of weeks ago, where the blood was taken of this bird and the other bird was dipped into it 7 times. One was set free. It's the same pictures over and over and over again. And here, so Naaman said, what are you talking about? Don't we have rivers in Syria that are better, bigger? Look who I am. You're making me go in this little Pitzel River, Jordan. And finally, and he had to dip not once, 7 times. Imagine you going to dip in the Jordan and everybody's watching. This big general goes once and he has to come out, twice and come out, 3 times, 7 times. Talk about being humiliated. But when he came out the 7th time, he was healed of Itzarat. And he said, now I know there is a God, the only God in Israel. So, and he said, but please forgive me that when I go back and I go into my temple, because he had to go back to his temple. And even though I do all the performance of what I do, I will know that there is only one God. That's what the nations have to see. And it can only be because of our behavior, because of what we do. There will be healing in the land when our souls, our spirit is healed and we turn back to our God. There is no other way. No amount of marches, no amount of petitions, nothing that we can do. Yeah, we have to stand up and fight, of course. But all of it is Band-Aid unless we turn to God, unless we turn from our ways that God says do not do. If our children say it's okay, homosexuality and all this gender business, LGBTQRXP, if that's okay, then we are lost. If we say it's okay, high financial crime is okay, it's okay to charge huge amounts of interest to our own people, to defraud each other. It's okay. It's okay to lie and to gossip, to steal. All these are okay. Nobody's going to notice. It's not okay. It's not okay for an ultra-Orthodox person, I don't care what religion they are, to not keep the 10 commandments, to not do. It says, look what it said in Ezekiel. The orphans are not taken care of. Widows are not taken care of. The stranger among us is not taken care of. That's what we were supposed to do. We are a people called to justice. We need tzedek tirdof. Justice we must pursue. And unless we do, we will not see peace in our land. And that's the bottom line. Whether it's popular or not, that's the bottom line. So we won't be popular. Anyway, do you want to end with the benediction, the Aaronic benediction, Jerry?
Yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'kedushaso shel Aaron v'tzivon levarech es amo Yisrael b'yahavo. Yevarechecho Adonai v'yishmerecho Yoel Adonai panav elecho v'chuneko Yiso Adonai panav elecho V'yashem lecho shalom. V'samu et shemi al b'nei Yisrael v'ani arvorchem.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. So shall they put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. There's also, I was just quickly looking for the prayer for tonight. Today is the, hang on, Kol Hamoed Pesach. It would be here. We say we're at the day of the counting of the Omer. I think today should be, Shabbat was 11. So hang on. So today is, what are we, May the 1st. It's the 8th day. So we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu as sefirat haomer. And today is it's not the 8th day. It can't be. Today's May the 1st. Yeah, it's the 8th day. So we count the Omer, looking forward to the time of Shavuot, which is 50 days after Pesach, and we begin counting. This is why we read the book of Ruth at Shavuot, but we'll talk about that more later. So I want to wish you all a wonderful rest of the week. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and let us do our best to bring light into this world. Everywhere we go, everyone we speak to, let us be careful what comes out of our mouth, more than what we put into our mouth, what comes out of our hearts. So I wish you a wonderful evening, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.